You know, there is a specific number that I stumbled across while I was prepping for today, and I honestly thought it was a typo. I had to go back and check 3 different times.
Oh, I think I know exactly which number you're talking about. Is the upload statistic.
It is the upload statistic. Over 100,000 new tracks are uploaded to Spotify every single day.
It's staggering.
It is a staggering amount of audio. Like, if you think about it, that's more music released in a week than was probably released in an entire decade back in the vinyl era.
It's a complete tidal wave, and I think it perfectly sets the stage for what industry insiders call the great paradox of the modern music business.
Right, the paradox. Because on one hand, the gatekeepers are dead. You have a laptop, you have a microphone, you have a Wi-Fi connection.
You're an artist.
Congratulations, yeah, you are a global recording artist. The barrier to entry is effectively zero.
Exactly. And that's the dream we were all sold, right? The ultimate democratization of art. But the flip side of that coin is that while the barriers to entry are gone, the barriers to actually being heard have literally never been higher.
Because there's just too much out there.
Right. We aren't dealing with a scarcity of content anymore. We are dealing with a scarcity of attention. It's fundamentally a noise problem.
And when you have that much noise, the power doesn't actually disperse to people, does it? It seems like from the sources we read, it just consolidates.
It absolutely consolidates. If we look at the corporate landscape outlined in our research, we've gone from 6 major music conglomerates back in the 90s down to just the big 3.
Universal, Sony, and Warner.
Exactly. They control the vast majority of the global market share. So you have this infinite ocean of content at the bottom, but the pipeline at the top is tighter than it has ever been.
Which brings us to the actual mission for our deep dive into the source material today. We've got a fascinating stack of sources, industry white papers, platform data analytics, and some really interesting psychoacoustic research.
It's a great mix of data.
Yeah, and we aren't just going to talk about catchy tunes today. We are going to unpack the machinery behind them. We need to look at the economics, the algorithms, and the actual psychological engineering that decides what gets stuck in your head.
We're going to cover why songs are getting physically shorter, how producers use a trick called ghost bass to literally hack your brain, and why the middle class of musicians is essentially disappearing.
Let's start with the money, because I think the average listener, and I definitely include myself in this, assumes that the streaming era is basically a meritocracy. I pay my $10 a month, I listen to the bands I like, and they get paid. It feels like a direct one-to-one transaction.
It feels that way, sure, but the reality presented in the financial reports is much more complicated. We are seeing a classic winner-takes-all economy. The data shows that right now, the top 1% of artists receive roughly 90% of all streams.
90%. I mean, that is a wealth gap that makes the actual global economy look balanced.
It's incredibly skewed, and the revenue follows the streams. The reason for this disparity is actually baked into the payment model itself. Most major platforms use what's called a pro rata model.
Okay, I've heard this term thrown around, pro rata, but let's actually break down how the math works for the listener.
Imagine a giant bucket. Every month, all the subscription revenue, so your $10, my $10, plus all the ad revenue, it all goes into this one massive pot.
Okay, so it's a communal pool.
Right. Now, at the end of the month, the platform looks at the total number of streams across the entire world. Billions of streams. They then divide that big pot of money based on the percentage share of those total streams.
So let me pressure test this, because this is where I always get tripped up. Let's say I am a huge fan of, I don't know, obscure experimental jazz. I find a band in Nebraska that has maybe 300 listeners. I listen to them exclusively. Logic suggests my $10 minus the platform's cut should go to that band, right?
Under a user-centric model, yes, that is exactly how it would work. But under pro rata, absolutely not. Your $10 goes into the big pot, and because superstars like Drake or Taylor Swift generate millions of streams an hour, they have the massive volume.
Oh, I see.
So mathematically, the bulk of your specific subscription fee is effectively subsidizing the payouts to the megastars, even if you never played a single second of their music.
That feels, well, it feels wrong. It means my financial vote doesn't actually follow my ear.
It means the system rewards volume above all else, and this volume game has fundamentally changed how the charts work. The sources highlight something called the album bomb.
Right, the album bomb. This is why every time a massive artist drops a record, the top 10 just looks like a single artist's track list.
Exactly. And it's a fascinating shift from the physical era. Back in the CD days, if you bought an album, it counted as one sale. It didn't matter if you listened to the hit single 1,000 times or the deep cuts once, 1 unit moved.
But now, every individual track stream counts toward the chart position.
Right. So when Taylor Swift, for example, releases a 20-track album,
She isn't just debuting an album, she is debuting 20 individual products simultaneously.
precisely, she can occupy 20 or more slots on the Billboard Hot 100 at the exact same time.
Which effectively builds a wall around the charts. If
Yeah.
there are only 100 spots and one artist takes a quarter of them, the real estate for breaking a new artist just evaporated.
It's completely monopolized. And for the smaller artists, the floor is rising too. In 2024, there was a major policy change regarding the minimum threshold for payment. A track now must hit 1,000 streams annually to earn any royalties at all.
Wait, let's pause there for a second. 1,000 streams annually. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for a garage band just starting out, getting 1,000 genuine listens is actually pretty difficult. So if they get 900 streams, what happens?
They get 0. The logic from the platforms is that they need to clear out the noise. Things like white noise tracks, fraudulent uploads, bot farms. And to be fair, the reports show that is a very real problem.
Sure.
But the collateral damage is the aspiring artist trying to get their footing. That policy effectively demonetized roughly 87% of the tracks on the platform.
Wow, so the economics are clearly stacked against the little guy. But I want to pivot to something you mentioned in the intro. You said this economic structure is actually changing the structure of the songs themselves, like how the music is written.
This is where the attention economy stops being a buzzword and starts being a literal design constraint. To understand why modern songs sound the way they do, you have to look at the payout trigger. An artist is only paid if a user listens for 30 seconds.
The golden 30 seconds.
Exactly. But combined with that is the skip rate. The algorithm is constantly watching you. If users consistently skip a song in the first 5 seconds, the algorithm tags that song as irrelevant or boring, and it stops recommending it. It just dies on the vine.
So as a songwriter today, you are writing with a stopwatch running. You have 5 seconds to convince someone not to leave.
That fear has completely killed the intro. Think about classic rock or even pop from the 80s. You might have a 30-second or even a minute-long instrumental buildup. It sets the mood. It establishes the atmosphere.
Today, that's just an invitation to click next.
It's a luxury you cannot afford. The data shows the average intro length has dropped from over 20 seconds in the mid-80s to under 5 seconds today. In fact, many producers now just put the chorus right at the 0-second mark.
The old don't bore us, get to the chorus philosophy.
Taken to the absolute extreme. And the songs themselves are physically shrinking. We're seeing averages drop to around 3 minutes, with some massive viral hits barely cracking 2 minutes.
Is that just because our attention spans are ruined? Or is there an economic incentive driving that too?
It's largely an efficiency model. Think about the math. If a song is 2 minutes long, you can play it 30 times in an hour. If it's 4 minutes long, you can only play it 15 times. More plays per hour equals more royalties.
So we are literally prioritizing the turnover of songs. It's like flipping tables at a busy restaurant to maximize tips.
That is a perfect analogy. And a huge driver of this structural shift is TikTok. The industry white papers show that major labels have essentially outsourced their talent scouting to TikTok. They aren't looking for long-term development projects anymore.
They are using data scraping to find artists who are already viral.
Exactly. They aren't looking for raw talent. They're looking for data points that prove the concept already works. They want clippable moments. The 3-second rule of content consumption is forcing songwriters to write specific musical moments designed to be used in memes or background videos.
You aren't writing a narrative arc anymore. You are writing a vehicle for a 15-second snippet. It sounds like we are optimizing music for metrics rather than emotion. But clearly we do still like music. We are streaming more than ever. So there has to be a science to what makes us actually enjoy these snippet-optimized songs.
There is. And it brings us to the brain science of the hit. The research highlights a concept called the optimal complexity model, which is often visualized as the Wundt curve.
The Wundt curve. Help us visualize that.
Imagine an inverted U shape. On the far left side, you have too simple. Think of a nursery rhyme or a dripping tap. It's boring. The brain predicts it too easily, so it just tunes it out.
Okay, got it. And on the far right side.
Too complex. Chaos, noise, or frankly, highly complex tonal jazz. If the brain cannot find a recognizable pattern, it gets frustrated and perceives the sound as unpleasant.
So the goal is the top of the U, the sweet spot.
Right. Maximum pleasure sits right in the middle. You want familiarity so the brain feels safe, but just enough novelty to keep it engaged. And if we look at music history, we can trace this perfectly. Jazz, for example, evolved toward maximal complexity. It became intellectually rigorous, but it alienated the mass audience. Pop music went the exact other direction. It optimized for maximal simplicity.
I saw a stat in the research that said melodic complexity in pop music has actually dropped 30% since 1950. That sounds like a pretty strong dumbing down argument.
It sounds like it, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. While melodic complexity dropped, note density, meaning the number of notes sung per second, actually increased. We traded intricate, wandering musical journeys for rapid-fire earworms. We want the hook, and we want fast and repetitive.
So we traded quality for quantity, in a sense.
Or we traded the journey for immediate stimulation. But the true geniuses, the artists who last for decades, they know how to hack this curve. They use what the literature calls sophisticated simplicity.
Who is the best example of that from the sources?
Elton John is a master at this. To the casual listener, a song like Tiny Dancer is just a catchy, singable pop song. But if you look under the hood, he is doing some very complex things. He uses slash chords, which are inversions, to create linear bass lines that move step by step. It's actually a technique Mozart used.
Oh, wow. So he's hiding the complexity. He's putting the vegetables in the brownie.
Exactly. You feel the depth, even if you can't articulate it. Then you have someone like Prince. Look at When Doves Cry. That song was a massive chart topper in the 80s, but strictly speaking, it shouldn't have worked.
Why not? What did he do?
He completely removed the bass line.
Wait, really? A dance track with no bass guitar?
No bass guitar, no synth bass, just drums, vocals, and some keyboards. In 80s pop, that was unheard of. It creates this stark, hollow feeling. It was highly unfamiliar, which usually kills a pop song because it pushes you too far to the complex or weird side of the foot curve.
So how did he save it? How did it become a hit?
He anchored it with that incredibly catchy synth riff and his vocal performance. He balanced the structural weirdness with absolute melodic familiarity. He walked the tightrope perfectly.
Speaking of bass, we have to talk about ghost bass. Because when I read this in our notes, I thought it was a conspiracy theory. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel.
It sounds like magic, but it's pure physics. This is a staple in modern trap, hip-hop, and pop. Think of artists like Billie Eilish or Lorde. The production style is very sparse.
Right, the whisper pop trend. It's very intimate.
Yes, and to get that intimate vocal, you need physical space in the frequency spectrum. So producers remove the mid-range bass, the notes you can actually hear clearly on a regular guitar, and they only use sub-bass.
That's the stuff you feel rattling in your chest at a club.
Correct. But here is the problem. Most people listen on iPhones or laptops. Those tiny speakers physically cannot play sub-bass frequencies. They're just too small to move that much air.
So if the speaker can't actually play the note, why do I still hear the bass line when I listen to Billie Eilish on my phone?
Because of a psychoacoustic phenomenon called the missing fundamental. Producers use a software plugin to saturate the harmonics, which are the overtones of that bass note.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain harmonics to me like I'm 5.
Sure, every musical note isn't just one single sound. It's a fundamental pitch, plus a series of higher, quieter pitches called overtones. It's a package deal. If you play just the overtones loud enough, your brain looks at the pattern and says, oh, based on these upper notes, the low note absolutely must be there. And your brain literally hallucinates the root note.
That is wild. We're literally constructing the music in our own heads.
We are filling in the gaps. It allows the producer to clear out all those muddy middle frequencies so the vocal can sit right in your ear, hyper-isolated, while your brain invents the bass warmth. It's brilliant audio engineering.
It's engineering the human experience. And speaking of engineering, that leads us perfectly to the nostalgia industrial complex. I feel like every time I turn on the radio, I'm hearing a remix of a song from 1999.
You aren't crazy. The industry data shows we are in a golden age of interpolation.
Why now? Is it just that we've finally run out of new melodies?
It's entirely about risk management. Remember the Wundt curve. The brain loves successful predictions. When you hear a melody you already recognize, it triggers processing fluency. Your brain says, I know this, I can predict what comes next. And that feels really good.
So when David Guetta releases a song like I'm Good, and it sounds exactly like that old Eiffel 65 song,
it's a calculated move to borrow the goodwill of the original track. Labels are spending billions buying up old publishing catalogs. They aren't just collecting the royalties, they are actively shopping those classic melodies to new pop songs.
it's recycling assets.
It heavily minimizes risk. If the data says a melody worked in the 90s, the algorithm says it has an extremely high probability of working today. It's just safer than betting on a brand new song. And then, of course, you have the sped up versions.
Oh, I see this on Spotify all the time. It'll say the artist name and then sped up version. It sounds like the Chipmunks.
That is a direct response to TikTok. Labels realized that users were illegally speeding up songs to fit them into 15-second dance videos. Instead of fighting it with copyright strikes, they are now officially releasing nightcore or sped-up versions. They know that for a younger generation, the snippet, that high-energy, squeaky voice version, is the canonical version. The full song is just an afterthought.
That connects right back to the attention economy. If you can't hold them for 3 minutes, hold them for 15 seconds at double speed.
Exactly. It's adapting the product to fit the container.
So if the game is completely rigged for the top 1% via pro rata payments, and the algorithms demand 2-minute nostalgia loops, how does the middle class of musicians survive? Is there a path forward, or is it just get famous or go home?
The sources show there is hope, but it requires a complete shift in strategy. First, an artist has to understand the churn. Staying on top is incredibly expensive. Labels spend about $2.54 million annually on marketing for a superstar just to fight the churn.
$2.5 million just to stay relevant.
Yes, because 40% of top 10 hits drop out of the charts after just one single week. The turnover is brutal. So for the non-superstars, you simply cannot play that game. You don't have the budget.
So what's the alternative for them?
One tactic is the waterfall strategy. Instead of going into a cave for 2 years and dropping a massive album that disappears in a week, you release a single every 4 to 6 weeks.
You just keep the drip going.
You keep the algorithmic heartbeat alive, you stay on the release radar playlists. But the more interesting pivot, and I think the most sustainable one based on the data, is the superfan model.
I've heard about this, the 1,000 true fans theory.
Right. The classic example in the case studies is the late rapper Nipsey Hussle. Before he was a massive star, he was releasing his Crenshaw mixtape. He decided to print 1,000 physical copies and sell them for $100 each.
$100? For a CD you could essentially get online for free.
Yes. And he sold out in 24 hours. Jay-Z famously walked up and bought 100 of them himself. But look at the math. 1,000 fans paying $100 is $100,000 in direct revenue.
Okay, let's compare that to the streaming model. To make $100,000 on Spotify?
You would need roughly 25 to 30 million streams.
Wow. Okay, that really puts it in perspective.
Getting 30 million people to listen to you is almost impossible without a major label machine behind you. Getting 1,000 people to love you enough to buy a specialized product, that is actually achievable.
So the lesson there is don't try to get 1 million people to vaguely like you. Get 1,000 people to deeply value you.
Precisely. It's about depth of connection, not width of reach. And we see this in live performance strategies too. Look at Ed Sheeran,
The loop pedal guy.
the absolute master of the loop pedal. When he builds a song layer by layer live on stage, he isn't just showing off his timing. He is effectively teaching the audience the song as it happens. You hear the beat, then the bass, then the chord progression.
And by the time the chorus actually hits,
Your brain has already processed all the individual parts. It actively increases that processing fluency we talked about earlier. You feel smart because you understand the song's structure, and that makes you like it more. He is hacking the vote curve in real time.
it's fascinating that even the live performance is optimizing for how our brains process information. It feels like every single aspect of the industry, from the payment model to the performance, is being perfectly refined by data.
It has to be, because the competition is infinite now.
So we've covered the economics, the shrinking songs, the ghost face, and the nostalgia loops. But I want to zoom out for you listening at home right now. What does all of this actually mean for how we consume art?
It means we need to be very aware of the filter bubble. If you look at your streaming apps right now, they're increasingly grouping music by mood. Chill mix, focus flow, workout beats.
I use those all the time. I put on focus flow when I'm working on these scripts.
We all do. But notice what is missing from those titles. The artist. Music is becoming a utility, like tap water or electricity. It's just background noise to facilitate a daily task. You aren't listening to a band, you are listening to a vibe.
That is a pretty haunting thought. We are stripping the humanity out of the creation. It's just sonic.
And that raises the final big picture question from the research. We have moved from an era of discovery, where humans like A&R reps or radio DJs curated taste, to an era of data, where algorithms predict viral velocity.
Right, and if the algorithms are constantly optimize for simplicity and familiarity because that's what keeps us from clicking skip? Or are we just training our brains to reject innovation?
That is the danger. If we only feed the brain what is easy and familiar, we lose the capacity to appreciate the complex and the new. In a world of ghost baths and data-driven interpolations, we have to ask, does the listener even exist anymore? Or are we all just data points feeding the machine?
That is a lot to chew on. And actually, here's a final thought for you to mull over that builds on all this. If all this music is being engineered to perfectly fit the Wundt curve and hit our neurological sweet spots, what happens when AI completely masters that formula? Will human imperfection become the new premium product? Or will we just prefer the mathematically perfect synthetic pop?
It's a great question. We might just choose the perfect illusion.
Something to think about next time you put on a playlist. Remember, you have agency. Every time you press skip, you are casting a vote. You are voting for shorter intros and simpler hooks. So maybe, just maybe, let that challenging song play out. Give the intro a chance.
Disrupt the data.
I love that. Disrupt the data. Thank you for this deep dive into the source material. It's been genuinely eye-opening.
My pleasure.
And to you listening, thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.